voit toute ces jeunesses au chôme du. On est fatigué que les criminels vont plus en zombie. Qui nous foutent la paix, qui ramènent tout ce qu'ils nous ont ici. Sur les Champs-Élysées.
Yes, yeah. Take a look at Africa and tell me what you see. Broken homes, empty schools, the depth of poverty. They're taking all the gold, they're taking all the diamonds, with no development or benefit to Africans. Greedy corporations, corrupt politicians, conniving against the progress of the continent. The consequence of ignorance is conflict. Africa, they're taking apart for its resources. The politics of economics waste the profit. Follow the money, it will show you where the source.
Have you ever heard of an NGO winning any case against a whole government?
The winning makes us happy because we are tax experts.
It is a win for TGNA, a win for the rest of Africa.
This win actually means
more revenues for our nation. Advance the cause of tax justice in Africa.
This is a huge step.
Especially in the context of accountability.
To us changing some of these issues that are facing our country.
Set a precedent for other African countries.
there is hope, we can do it. Africa is headed to the right direction.
It's stopping the bleeding.
Tax Justice Network Africa has sued the government of Kenya in High Court, challenging the constitutionality of Kenya-Mauritius Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement, signed in Port Louis, Mauritius in May 2012. The DTAA between Kenya and Mauritius was nullified by the Kenya's High Court on the 15th of March 2019, thus granting part of Tax Justice Network Africa's submission.
A number of things. In the essence, a double tax agreement is supposed to ensure that companies that are operating in more than one jurisdiction do not pay tax twice. But what we see in many African countries, the double tax agreements signed, particularly those signed by between African countries and jurisdictions we consider as tax havens, are leading to double non-taxation. Kenya-Mauritius double tax agreement particularly, we felt that in a number of clauses was opening up the country for possible tax evasion and tax avoidance. In a number of areas, if you look at the capital gains tax, if you look at the taxation of management fees, you look at the taxation of royalties, withholding taxes particularly, we feel that because those taxes are supposed to be paid in the country of residence, it would lead to a situation where companies would prefer to set up either subsidiaries or their headquarters in Mauritius and use Mauritius as a conduit in investing into the country, and through that opening the floodgate for possible tax avoidance. And that was one of the critical points that we were raising. So you'd find that because particular taxes in that double tax agreement are lower than what Kenyan companies would pay if they were not based in Mauritius, it would, one, encourage Kenyan entities to either move offshore in something we call round tripping, or encourage companies that would otherwise have directly come to Kenya use Mauritius as an entry point to invest in the country in something that we call treaty shopping. So those were the two key areas that we felt that this particular double tax agreement was problematic. Well, tax justice in essence is about ensuring that we have a fair tax system, that everyone is paying their tax according to their ability to pay tax and not according to their ability to evade paying tax. And when you have a situation where companies that are operating out of Mauritius receive a more favorable treatment than companies that are not operating out of Mauritius for whatever reason, then that's by itself an injustice. It creates an unlevel playing field for both Kenyan entities. And as I said, I encourage companies that are resident in Kenya to move into Mauritius. And we have seen this happening. We have seen a number of Kenyan companies actually opening up subsidiaries in Mauritius, then coming back into the country as foreign investors, or companies that are either Chinese or American, using Mauritius as a platform for their investment into the continent and into Africa, into Kenya specifically. And that, of course, creates a level playing field for others. That is one. And then secondly, in a situation where companies are not paying their fair share of tax, it means that tax has to come from somewhere, and many a times it is the citizens who end up carrying that burden of taxation. So shifting the burden of taxation from the taxation of capital to the taxation of the citizens, by majority being the lower income earners.
The main argument the TJNA made was that it was unconstitutional because it didn't go through the proper ratification process. So it did go through some form of ratification in the sense that there was a signature by both parties, but this legal notice was never tabled in Parliament. So in that sense, there wasn't enough public participation, it didn't go through parliamentary approval, and therefore it was unconstitutional.
This is the first time that such a ruling has been made actually in the continent as far as I know. It means that it number one, raises awareness both in the country but across the continent about the role that Mauritius is playing as an enabler for tax avoidance and tax planning. That is one. And secondly, actually, it does open doors for other similar litigations, both in the country, but also the possibility of using similar strategies in other countries where we feel that countries are signing agreements that are severely undermining their tax basis or limiting their ability to effectively collect taxes. For companies that have subsidiaries in Mauritius, depending on the sector that they are operating, they have this opportunity. And this is not just hearsay. We have evidence already of companies that in anticipation of these agreements were already moving offshore, moving to Mauritius specifically to take advantage of this treaty. What we have shown is that there are different ways of skinning the cat, and here we see a situation where a litigation strategy has resulted to a win, to a policy win. After the court annulled the treaty, the Kenyan government, presented by the president, paid a courtesy visit to Mauritius, where they again signed a new double tax agreement, which basically sends a very clear message about how disruptive our win was.
I think so, particularly if you think about our region. The first case is the fact that the EAC, that is the East African Community, is trying to harmonize its tax regime by having a common double taxation avoidance agreement as the 5 East African countries, that is Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, and of course South Sudan. Secondly, you also have to think in terms of the formation of international financial centers. If you think of Nairobi, they are trying to form sort of a tax haven with the formation of the Nairobi International Financial Center, but there also a similar effort in Rwanda. with the formation of the Kigali International Financial Center. So of course you would see if with that similarity, then they also have to look at their position considering the institution that they are forming. And thirdly, it would mean that a lot of African countries might start re-evaluating the position of Mauritius in the loss of its resources. Mauritius has signed a lot of the double taxation agreements. The last time I checked, it's more than 12 double taxation agreements in Africa. And that means, for instance, if we take it loosely, that 12 countries might have a way for resources out of its economies. Mainly in a country like Kenya, they would have to think about the involvement of Parliament in its ratification of such treaties and in evaluation to find out the cost-benefit analysis of these sorts of agreements. By law, the Kenyan Parliament is supposed to ratify a lot of Kenyan international treaties, but we get a sense that with this double taxation agreement, they are very unaware about its context and its benefits, in that the information they have is skewed towards the government perspective that this would encourage investors, yet not clearly stating how it would be of benefit to the country as opposed to the companies that are expected to come on the basis of the double taxation agreements. And so we find that Parliament is not really aware.
I think that the ruling should, in essence, apply to all other treaties that have been signed under this new constitution. If the government did not fulfill the provisions of the law, we will definitely litigate against the other treaties. For example, the United Arab Emirates double tax agreement, the double tax agreement with the Netherlands, with China, among others. So it is, I think, for us, it opens doors for us to revisit the number of treaties that the government has signed in the recent past. But again, more importantly, this is not just a win for Kenya, it's a win for the continent, because as you're aware, Mauritius has been signing double tax agreement with a number of African countries, and we feel that this is something that we need to revisit. We are encouraging our colleagues in other different countries to consider pursuing the same strategy going forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your program director for the next 3 days, Dr. Ronnie Michael Egwang. No, hold on a second, attendez un peu. Stop. This is unbelievable. This is an international conference of unbelievable caliber des gens viennent de partout du monde, and they've introduced le maître de cérémonie, and that's the round of applause that you give him. Pas possible. No, in fact, no. Let's stop. I'm going to tax all of you. We're going to do it again. Let's do it again. Let me walk out, introduce the host of the day, and we give him a round of applause that is befitting of someone who will be guiding the events for the next 3 days. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host for the Pan-African Conference on Illicit Financial Flows, Conférence panafricaine sur le flux financier illicite et la fiscalité. Mesdames et messieurs, Dr. Ronnie Michel Egwang. Now that's more like it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Ronnie Michael Egwang, and I'm going to be ce qu'on appelle directeur des programmes, director of programs pour les... We don't fall asleep. And that we ensure that all the content that we're here to share is content that can be shared everywhere on the digisphere and inside the hall. My name, well, starts with a doctor, but I'd like to quickly bring to your concern that I am not a human doctor, so if you fall sick, je ne peux pas vous aider. I cannot help you. Unless you bark like a dog, I cannot help you. I am a veterinary doctor. I am what they call a son of the soil, un fils du continent. I was born and bred in East Africa. I grew up in Gabon, in West Africa. I've worked in South Africa. I lived in Kenya for 5 years, but my origin is from a country, a beautiful country called Uganda. But that's just where my parents decided to have me born. But my roots are a bit deeper than that. My roots come from as far as Sudan. We come from a people called the Luo people. Now, the Luo people originally, we originate from a place called Bar El Ghazal. Now, Bar El Ghazal is in Sudan, and we migrated through Uganda, dropped a few of us Luos, then ended up here in Kenya. Now, the unique thing about us Luos is that, minus the fact that we are very good on microphones, but we are the only tribe in Africa that has ever ruled the White House. So, I think it's important to know that you are here in good hands. For the next 3 days, I'd like to say that it's important, first of all, to follow rules and regulations. And my mother told me a very important one, that never speak to strangers. So what I'd like you to do is to turn to your neighbor and look your neighbor in the eyes and hold their hand and say, Karibu Kenya. Welcome to Kenya. Of course, you can get their names and everything. Yes, make them feel welcome. Yes. Great. So, I'd like to welcome you all to Crown Plaza, but the rules stipulate that it's important for us to ensure that on comprend ce qui va se passer en cas d'émergence ou d'urgence. So I'd like to call somebody from the security department of Crown Plaza, Mr. Charles Korir. Charles, please come up and give us a security briefing pour qu'on puisse commencer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Beach. Sorry. My name is Charles Korir. I'm head of security Crown Plaza. First, I should take this opportunity to welcome you to Crown Plaza. We feel honored to host you. Karibuni. Secondly, I will take you through our security brief. That is our norm. Crown Plaza, being an international brand, we comply with all brand safety standards locally and internationally. So we are on the ground floor of this particular building, and Crown Plaza has contingent plan in place in the event of emergency, be it fire, threat of any kind. We have that capacity to handle any situation before even we involve the external team. For your information, we are not anticipating any drill of any kind. So should you hear any evacuation order, you are actually supposed to leave this particular room to our assembly point, which is the safest point. On my extreme left, that is exit. That exit leads you towards, there's an entrance over there, and then as you walk out, there is an emergency assembly point. Behind you, we have 3 pictorial signages, the green ones. Those are also our exits. It leads you towards the foyer area, lobby, and then we have another assembly point outside the hotel, which is actually clearly marked. On my extreme left, right again, sorry, there is also another exit. You use that exit into the assembly point. So, as I said, we are not anticipating any drill of any kind. So, should you do any evacuation, they are actually audible enough through our speakers. It's an evac message, so you need to utilize those exits and then assemble yourself at those assembly points and wait for further instructions. Our rooms are non-smoking rooms. However, we have actually designated smoking zones just to comply by the laws of this country. We have 2 smoking zones, one outside the hotel, next to the main entrance. So there is a smoking zone over there, and then we also have one in the restaurant at the terrace area. So should you feel like visiting those particular places, those are our smoking zones. As I said, our rooms are non-smoking rooms. So please comply with that law, because if you smoke in a undesignated zone, you might be charged for that. You might be fined for that, which we are actually not ready as the hotel to do that. Again, our security is actually derived from a 24-hour CCTV surveillance backed by man guarding. We also have armed police officers who are actually guarding these particular premises. So should there arise any threat of any kind, we have the capacity to counter before we involve the external team. So I can assure you, security is guaranteed. However, we always kindly request our clients to take care of their valuables. When you are in this particular room, make sure that you take care of your bags, your undies, your laptops, and then get to know whom you are actually seated with, because it's actually very important, so that in the event of any incident of any kind, we can be able to follow it up. So please get to know whom you are actually seated with. If you are staying with us and perhaps you are carrying something which maybe you are actually not using in the conference, it's better you keep them in the rooms, in your rooms. You lock them in your rooms, because our rooms are actually safe. I'm not saying this conference is not safe, but remember, security starts with you. So you need also to take care of your valuables, your bags, and etc. When you visit again our washrooms, or rather in the restaurant is more of a public than private, dining place, because we also have walk-ins who come and dine with us. So please, also when you are in restaurant, take care of your valuables as well, and then the same applies to washrooms as well. So please make sure that security starts with you as well. You secure first your belongings before Crown Plaza secured. Otherwise, I'm actually assuring you that the place is safe. When you break for lunch, and we'll also have security who will, keep an eye for any electronic which will be left behind. And then I'll also request you to wear your badges all through for ease of identification. We are actually not allowing anybody without any badge in this particular room. So get note of that. So if you perhaps have left your badge, we might not allow you until we prove that you are part of the team. So should you spot any person who actually is not wearing any badge or any suspicious person, please let us know so that we take the necessary action. We don't want a situation whereby we also have intruders, because this is an international function, and we at times have what we normally call gate crashers. So please, if you see somebody who is actually not, or rather was not in the meeting, please let us know. Again, our washrooms, as you walk out, we have our washrooms next to the lobby. We have the gents and the ladies, and then we also have washroom for person with special needs. So as you walk out, that is where we have our washrooms. Our restaurant is actually a bit distant, but you pass through the reception straight on, and then you'll actually be shown. It's actually at the far end next to the gym. That is where our main restaurant is. As far as health and safety is concerned, Crown Plaza, we have certified trained first aiders and fire marshals as well. So should there arise any illness of any kind, and then on top of that, we also have an in-house nurse who operates between 8 and 5. And then after 5, that is now we have a doctor on call 24/7. So should you perhaps fall sick, you also let us know through your organizers so that at least we arrange for those medical services. The hotel also has a contract with Nairobi Hospital and also Aga Khan. Nairobi Hospital is not far from here, some meters away. So should you have any issue of medical issue, let us know so that at least we arrange for that. Other than that, I can assure you that Crown Plaza is safe. For those of us who are staying in our rooms, we also have evacuation plans on in each and every door. So please take your time, familiarize yourself with the nearest fire exit or other emergency exit, which is actually next to your room. So that should there arise any emergency, you have the capacity to maneuver out and go to safer place. So once again, I take this opportunity to welcome you to Crown Plaza. As I said, we feel honored to host you. I wish you a safe meeting for the next 3 days, I think. If there's anything of security concern, we are always there 24/7, so you will let us know. Then thank you so much, and welcome again to Crown Plaza. Thanks.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Mr. Charles Koror. He is in charge of security here. All right. So how do you get a conference of this magnitude on the road? So I think the best way to do it is by recognizing who is around. So what I like to do is just a simple exercise. It's an icebreaker. It's just to make sure that everybody is comfortable with who is in the vicinity. So probably you can put your hands up, you can wave, you can shout. In fact, I would like to hear you greet all of us in your mother tongue. Because back where we come from, you can say Mugambachi, you can say Mulimutia, you can say what you'd like to say. So let's put our hands together for all of our delegates from Ethiopia, Rwanda, Cameroon. Nobody from any of those countries. Where are you from? Cameroon, comment ça va? Where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from?
I am from Cameroon. I will say bonjour and good morning, because Cameroon is a bilingual country speaking French and English. Bonjour. Good morning. And lastly, not the least, Mbembekiri.
Which language is that? What's the answer?
Kirumbong. This is the local, my native language, which is Ewondo. You hear about Yaoundé. Yes. Yaoundé is derived from Ewondo, which is the tribe in the Yaoundé city, around the Yaoundé city. Then French or colonial, German or English, they said Yaoundé instead of Ewondo. Yes. Thank you.
Wow. Awesome lesson there. So let's give a round of applause to everybody from Ghana, Sudan, Tunisia, Uganda, and the USA. And, when you stand up to say hi, I want you to tell me, what's your expectation for the next 3 days? What are you looking for? Did you come here just for the free food? Did you come here for networking? Are there opportunities? Qu'est-ce que vous cherchez? So, where are you from? Tu viens d'où?
Ghana, I would say good morning. And my expectation is to first network and also learn more about illicit financial flows, because that's exactly what I do, advocating for Tax Justice Coalition Ghana. Yeah, thank you.
Let's give a big round of applause. A special hello to everybody from the UK, Burundi, Senegal, Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Nigeria. Yes, yes. I see some brothers from Nigeria. Give us a big hello.
Hello, good morning. My name is Olarin Deolufemi. I'm from Nigeria. My expectation here is generally about taxation. Anywhere taxation is being spoken about is my schedule, and like to hear how good tax administration should run. Thank you.
Let's give a big round of applause. Welcome, welcome, welcome. A big hello to everybody qui vient du France, South Africa, Mozambique, Congo, Finland, Brazil, Lesotho, and Tanzania. Oh, big round of applause to them.
Hi, I'm Zolani from South Africa. In my native mother language, we'd say Molweni. Sawubona Tumelang. Thank you.
Yes, another one here.
Bonjour. Je viens de la RDC, Congo-Kinshasa. Je dirige la régie financière des récoltes des taxes et des impôts de la ville de Kinshasa. Merci. Merci. Mbote, mbote.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, a big hello to everybody from Zambia, Norway, Botswana, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Mali. Big round of applause. Hey! Yes, I see some people who are happy to be here. Yes. And I just like to tell everybody that we are live on camera, so if you lied to your husband or wife that you are just going for another meeting, you have been caught in action.
Hello, everybody. I am from Botswana. Yes, Dumelang.
All right, and so speaking about the digital activation space, what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with us the different platforms that we'll be using, and then I'd like to introduce a polling system which is going to become our best friend when it comes to getting feedback. So I'm sure most of you have logged on to the website. The website is www.pancontax.net. We'll put that up online. Then we also have our Facebook page, which is at Tax Justice Africa. So if you'd like to engage on our Facebook page, it is at Tax Justice Africa. And then for those of you who like tweeting, we've got our handle as at Tax Justice Afrique, without the A. So let me introduce you to what they call polling everywhere. So most of you now have logged in on your phones, on your laptops. You've got wireless and Wi-Fi. I'd like you to go to www.polleverywhere.com. Take a few seconds and go to that, because it's the platform that we're going to use to get feedback. Quand on a des questions à poser, ce qu'on va faire, we're going to go to this website, on va poser les questions, and on va trouver les réponses. So we'll go to this website, ask questions, and the answers will be posted. So take a few seconds, go to the site, www.polleverywhere.com. Then enter the code Pan-African CO720. Then we can try a quick exercise. what I was doing was just trying to break the ice, and I was asking everybody about what their expectations for the next 3 days is. So we'd like to do that, but digitally. So Cynthia, on est prêt? All right. Are we all there? Brilliant. So let's log on and give it a shot. On est bien? Aha. What are your... The word cloud is changing because as the different responses are coming in, our perspectives are being captured. Some people are here to learn. Some people want to network. Some people are looking for experiences, new insights, to meet participants. So this is it. We'll be engaging with polleverywhere.com during the course of the next 3 days. Every time we have a new poll, you'll just go to the website, click, participate, and we will present the answers. Great. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, question. Why are we here? Why are we talking about illicit financial flows and tax? And what's the story behind it? Well, the essence, Malawi has not, how dare Malawi be forgotten? I'd like you to stand up and greet us. We could not have forgotten Malawi. Kindly introduce yourself, greet us in Malawian, and you can actually kick off the next part of the day.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephen Kaproma. I'm the head of corporate affairs from the Malawi Revenue Authority. Glad to be here. I have also my 2 other colleagues that are fantastic researchers and are doing great. In Malawi, you say moni, moli bwanji, moli bwino. So moni, moli bwanji, bwino. We're looking forward to exchange a lot of experiences in the area of financial flows, and we're here to learn big time. Thank you very much.
Let's give a huge round of applause to Malawi, ladies and gentlemen. It is also with great concern that I've noticed that Sierra Leone is also here, but they have not said anything. Is Sierra Leone here? Hey. And Liberia, I'll say, how dare I forget? No. I apologize profusely. And that's why I'm here, Cecilia, to give you the microphone to greet all of us with love and Liberia. Where are the Liberians? Let's give a big round of applause to the Liberians also. Yes.
We have been war-torn. Now we are country progressing. Amen. More than most of you guys, because we are fighting corruption. Amen. The illicit financial flows we are here for, yes, we are somehow advancing. Amen. So Awiana, Kushe, or Cabo.
Let's give a big round of applause. Sierra Leone is here with energy. Liberia, please tell us.
Well, our expectations are very high. We are still looking forward as a country to sustain the gains that has been over the years since the crisis. And I think illicit financial flow is right in that region, like she said, and we are looking forward. Thank you.
Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Liberia and Sierra Leone. All right, so just to make sure that we have not hurt anybody's feelings, is everybody accounted for? Can we start off? Wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, it would be criminal to kick a conference of this is somebody who's actually very passionate about the economy. In fact, he calls himself what they call a recovery economist. He's very passionate about a number of things: art, music, dance. But when I asked him to talk about his motto, he said his motto in life is that I took the path less traveled and I made a difference. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est avec un grand plaisir that I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of TJNA. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as Alvin comes up. No. Please clap more. He's the one buying the drinks. That's the way. No, don't sit down. Don't sit down. So I'm going to hand over the mic. Would you like to use the podium, or would you like to? Let's give him a big round of applause as he walks up.
So, good morning. I speak several languages and in different levels. I speak French, and in French we say bonjour. I can see my colleagues at the back are laughing because they don't believe that. In Swahili we say habari ya asubuhi. You say njema. Habari ya asubuhi. And in my mother tongue you say bwakire, which means as the sun risen. Who knows the answer to that? You get a free lunch. Oh, there's only a free lunch in this place, so it's not a good incentive. Bwakire buya. That is in the language called Kisi, my mother tongue. Ladies and gentlemen, I was just giving opening remarks, and I'm going to avoid all protocols because I think the pace that the moderator has set is already kind of the notes I was taking about starting giving acknowledgement of everyone in the room. I'm going to cut that short, but nevertheless, I still want to recognize the presence of the ETAF Executive Secretary, Mr. Logan Vogt, the Commissioner General from the Uganda Revenue Authority, Ms. Doris Akol, Dr. Fred Mugambi from the Commissioner, Kenya Revenue Authority, governments, revenue authorities, international organizations, and civil society present, and as they say, all protocol observed. It's my great pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the 7th Pan-African Conference on Illicit Financial Flows and Taxation. When we started this, when we created this space about 10 years ago, we were very deliberate to call it Pan-African. It was not an accident. It was a deliberate effort because we felt that the issues of illicit financial flows are not only technical issues, but they are political issues. Actually, to the larger extent, they are political issues. And there is need for a space for Africa to talk with itself. What do they need to do to address the scourge of illicit financial flows that is impeding significantly the ability of the continent to deliver its promise to its children? When we speak of Agenda 2063, which is Africa's blueprint on eradication of poverty, that dream would remain a mirage if we don't tackle illicit financial flows and support measures that will enable African countries to generate domestic resources to finance their development agenda. I called myself a recovering economist because I studied economics, and one of the things they teach you in economics, particularly when you're focusing on development economics, is they tell you that because poor countries, particularly in Africa, because they are so poor, they lack the resources to finance the development, they must do everything to attract external financing and external resources because they don't have the capacity to build the sufficient savings that are necessary to build the capacity for investment, which is an ingredient for economic growth. But having worked in this space over the last 10 years, nothing could be far from the truth. You see, until today, in many of our African countries, our policies are still informed by that kind of narrative that we can only be successful based on our ability to attract foreign investors. And you can ask any government official how a foreign investor looks like. If they start describing it, I will leave that for your imagination. The reality is that the continent is a net creditor to the world. There are more resources that are leaving the continent at what is coming in if you put aid and FDI together. And in a situation like that, we will be caught in a rabbit hole. Our ability to really chart our way forward and address the myriad challenges that the continent faces will remain stuck if we don't address the bleeding that the continent is facing. In the choice of the theme of this year's conference, looking at specifically intangibles, financial technology, and digitalization, was in recognition that as the world develops, the continent might be missing the train. It is estimated that 60% of global trade happens through trade in services. We are moving away from the traditional trade in goods to trade in services, taking a significant role in global trade and even in the continent. We look at the financial technology, you realize that technology, when you relate it to finance, is increasingly playing a very, very important role in terms of how our economies work. I, for one, don't walk around with my wallet. When I forget my wallet in the house, the only thing that I regret is not having carried my ID. But with your phone, for the Kenyans in the room, you know, there's no business you cannot transact without your mobile phone. And we are seeing this trend spread across the continent in Uganda and other countries. This is a trend we are seeing of the integration between finance and technology. We look at the scope of digitalization, and I will not want to preempt the rich conversations we are about to have, is that we live at a time when the laws that were designed for brick and mortar companies are not anymore relevant. How do you tax a transaction that is happening for a company that exists only virtually? And these are serious challenges that the continent is facing, and the next 3 days we will spend time to delve deeper into some of these questions. Particularly when you look at the digitization, you realize that we are faced with two very distinct challenges. One is that because of the nature and the character of virtual or digital platforms, companies that dominate this sector are highly prone to aggressive tax avoidance and tax evasion, and we have a number of country experiences in this regard. Secondly, beyond the question of tax avoidance and tax evasion, you also note that there is the central question on who has the right to tax a particular transaction. If I live in Kenya, I advertise on Facebook, that revenue that is generated, where is it going to be taxed? And this is a conversation that is happening globally, where unfortunately the continent is not on the table. And my colleague and friend Logan will be speaking much more on this issue, because ETAF has been very active in terms of trying to represent the continent in those global spaces where the discussions on how the sharing of how to achieve a fair distribution of taxing rights. More importantly is that you cannot tax the digital economy if you are not digital yourself. So we will have a session in the conference that is specifically focused on looking at what are the successes, challenges, and risks as many of our institutions, revenue authorities specifically, increase to digitize their operations, and that does provide opportunities for capturing some of the revenues from the digital economy. We have tried as much as possible to create a rich menu in the program, which combines plenary discussions, breakaway sessions, but also creating sufficient time for networking, because we recognize that in this kind of conferences, one of the biggest value addition is through the networks and the potential collaborations that can emerge out of these spaces. I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize and appreciate the support and the collaboration that we have achieved in this Pan-Africa Conference, which is the first time since the launch of the Pan-Africa Conference that we have over 10 organizations coming together to organize this conference. So this is not just about TGNA. We were the Secretariat. This is a collaborative effort of a number of organizations in the room. Just to mention them, the Coalition for Dialogue in Africa, represented here by the Executive Secretary, Suad Osman. If you could just wave your hand, Suad, she's seated there. We have Africa's leading feminist organization, Femnet, represented here by Memory Kachambo. Memory, are you in the room? There's Memory. If you could just stand up, I just want people to recognize. Suad, if you could just, please. Those are some of the colleagues I just wanted to introduce. Then we have Trust Africa, represented by BRICS. Are you in the room? BRICS, just please stand up. From Trust Africa, the Pan-African Lawyers Union, Don, I don't know, he was flying in today, probably is Don Daya, based in Arusha. The African Forum for Debt and Development, based in Zimbabwe, Afrodad. By the United Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, represented here by my colleague Uzuma Erume. Uzuma, are you here? There she is. The Financial Transparency Coalition, the Global Alliance for Tax Justice. Dereje, are you here? There you are, Dereje. Colleagues from Oxfam, I don't know if Job is here, or anyone from Oxfam. Job, they're having another meeting in the my friend and colleague, Soren. Soren, if you could just stand up and say hi to the colleagues. That is Soren Ambrose. So this has been the dream and the vision for the Pan-Africa Conference, which is to create a space where different actors can convene and discuss and take stock of what successes are we achieving and what challenges are we facing, both at the national level, but as a collective African countries in tackling illicit financial flows. And the success we have achieved in this conference is my hope that we will continue to grow this going forward. Of course, all this would not have been possible without the team at the background. I would ask my colleagues at the back, please, to stand up. The Secretariat, all of you, please stand up. As you can see, Farah, I know you don't like me doing this, but I have to do. Those are my colleagues from the TGNA Secretariat, whose effort have really made this really possible. It is an effort that I appreciate, and colleagues, I'm really proud of you and the work that you have done to make this possible. In terms of outcomes, we are expecting that this does not only end up becoming a talk show. We will spend time, of course, to discuss all the different issues, but more importantly, is that we hope that at the end of the conference, we will come up with an outcome document that provides solutions of what needs to be done both at the national level and at the regional level in helping Africa address this challenge. And we are hoping that the conversations from here will feed into other ongoing conversations, including the Africa Finance Ministers meeting that is happening in March. Thank you very much. So that outcome document will be the main product out of this. I would like to request, of course, the issues that we are discussing can be, but must not be, complex issues. There are those who say that sometimes we hide our ignorance under complexity. It is really important that we try to avoid complicating simple issues, but at the same time find the balance solutions. So this is an appeal to the facilitators and the colleagues who will be leading us through the conversation, that not all of us are digitex, so please avoid technospeak, for us to be able to have a really frank and open conversation. Let's try and keep it simple. Lastly, I would like us to, I'll call upon the conference to please join me in a moment of silence for the passing away of a colleague, a friend, and a former member of the Tax Justice Network Africa Executive Council, Mr. Malcolm Damon, who passed on 2 weeks ago. So I would really appreciate if you could stand for a minute of silence with me, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. May the Lord rest his soul in eternal peace. Friends, colleagues, comrades, I'm really excited to this conference. When we were putting it together, we had a lot of conversation internally as a secretariat. Are we ready to have these kind of conversations? I can see my colleague Mustafa smiling there. We had a lot of back Skype conversations. Are you able to put together a team, a group of 100 people, drawn in from a wide range of sectors, civil society, journalists, media, governments, international organizations, and discuss digitalization? Is that feasible? Is that possible? There were those who were saying, Alvin, this is probably a subject for maybe 2-3 years. But the more I read into it, the more I was convinced that there could not be a better time. It reminds me the time when we started having the conversation of illicit financial flows. It was exactly the same kind of question. Is the continent ready to discuss issue that relates to tax havenry and others? And the changes that I've seen over the last 10 years convinced me that we could not have started at the better time. And as we move into the substantive sessions, I'm really excited about the energy in the room with the leadership of Dr. Mitch. I'm sure that by the time we will leave here on Thursday, we all agree that it was 3 days well spent. We would have been intellectually nourished. Not that you are malnourished, but I hope that it will be good value for money. It will be worth your time, having come all the different parts of the continent to join together and have these kind of conversations. With those few remarks, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite, Ronnie, this is your role, right? I'm not supposed to be doing that, I guess.
If you do the invitation, I won't get paid.
Okay, so I will leave that, and thank you very much for your time.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to the Executive Director of the Tax Justice Network Africa, Alvin Mosioma. Round of applause to him. So I think Alvin talked about how the subject can end up being extremely complex. Your country of operation, where you do your economic activity, can be country X, but then you've got so many different other countries in which you operate. Who has now the rights to the money that you're making? So taxing rights is going to be a complex discussion already. How am I going to interpret all of these things? So when I talk about interpretation, something comes to mind. And somebody once told me that a picture can tell 1,000 words. So I'd like to draw your attention at the madam on the left. Her name is Lulu. Lulu is interpreting all the proceedings for the next 3 days. Ce qu'elle va faire, c'est elle va dessiner, elle va mettre des images, elle va mettre en place how she feels and how she interprets what is being shared in terms of words, in terms of images. And probably on a regular basis, we'll be projecting those images and we'll share them with you afterwards. So let's give her a huge round of applause as she captures the heart and soul of the conference. So the next individual has a heart and soul for teaching. She's been a teacher for many years, but at the same time also she's also an avid Jane Nalunga. Big round of applause as she comes up.
Thank you, Mitch, for those kind words of introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, that's better. As I have been introduced, I'm Jane Nalunga. I'm the chairperson of the TGNA Executive Council. Maybe I would like to request my fellow executive members to stand up. Please, Michael. Okay. I don't see my, please stand up, the Executive Council of TGNA. I saw Michael somewhere. Okay, the others should be there. Our Executive Council is drawn from all over the African countries, and maybe also minus Malcolm, who just passed on. So on behalf of the TGNA Executive Council and the TGNA as an organization, I would like to welcome you all to this very, very important conversation. It's going to be a conversation because when you are conversing, you are not complicated, isn't it? You don't use complicated. bucket, our financial bucket where we put our money, you know. The resources coming in are drying up, but the hole is also sometimes growing bigger, you know. So we need to look at the context within which we are mobilizing resources. The context is changing very, very fast, you know. We are talking about digitalization, financialization. So the context is changing, and we have to be mindful of that, changing context. The context provides opportunities, but also provides challenges. It's a double-edged knife. And for us, this is TGNA and partners to be able to analyze those challenges, those opportunities, to have a conversation around that and how we move forward. I come from a trade agenda background. I'm very passionate about trade policy. And today, when people talk about tax governance, we talk about OECD. Today, I want us also to look at the trade-related aspect of IFF, of tax. Today, in the WTO, there are conversations around e-commerce, around the digital technologies. They are setting up rules, and we need to have a conversation around that. What kind of rules are they? Will they be able to help us get resources from this new economy? You know, for me, I want us also to have an eye around there. Since they are just opening remarks, I won't go into that, but I want us also to look at that angle. You know, from OECD in Paris, we should go also to Geneva. Next week, there is a public forum in the WTO, and these are the issues which are going to be on the agenda. So we need to link also the issues of the digital economy to the trade processes going on, to the CFTA. The CFTA, as Africa, can help us to come together to be able to chart a way forward as far as the digital economy is concerned. You know, we need to agree as Africa what kind of digital path are we going to take? Beyond taxing the digital economy, the digitalization, the technology, how do we use it to grow our economy, to grow our industries? I won't go into a lot of talking because we have a lot to talk about. We have 2 days in which we can be able to chart a clear way forward, you know. So I would just want, on behalf of the TGNA board, on behalf of the Secretariat, Alvin and his team, I would like to thank you so much for taking your time to be here so that we can have this conversation, so that we can be able to chart a clear way forward. I wish all of us a fruitful deliberations. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Jane Nalunga. Let's give her a round of applause as she walks down. Great. And I think to wrap up our introductions, ladies and gentlemen, the next individual has a continental eye when it comes to matters of tax administration. But his passion story is a little bit different. When I was speaking to him, he tells me, you see life in a different way when you see it from behind bars. In South Africa, he has spent close to 2 years in prison because of his perspectives on freedoms and also about speaking his mind. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me the Executive Secretary of ATAF, Mr. Logan Wart. Big round of applause.
Here and the thing don't work. I'd like to first of all thank all of you for coming here this morning. It was a great introduction, thanks to the Director of Ceremonies, and seeing that we're greeting in local languages. I speak Afrikaans, so goeiemorgen. The Executive Director of TJNA, Alvin Musioma, and the heads of all the partnering organizations of this conference, Ms. Jane Nalunga, the Chair of the Executive Council of TJNA, Ms. Doris Akor, the Commissioner General of Uganda Revenue Authority and also member of the ATF Council, Dr. Ida Opoku-Mensah, the former head of special initiatives under the great Dr. Abdallah Hamdok, all the heads of multilateral organizations, guests, development partners, friends and colleagues, I greet you this morning. For us in ATAF, it is an honor to participate in this 7th edition of what is an important gathering on the continent. Not only has our attention been strongly focused on stemming illicit financial flows from the continent, but we are faced with this new challenge of the digitalized economy, a challenge that presents both opportunities and threats to us, and probably what we will be discussing over the next few days. Noting these two large streams of work, I believe that we have a fundamental opportunity to sufficiently develop an African position to showcase to the global community and to leverage our own technological advances, innovation and ingenuity. In this regard, we at ATAF highly value our partnership with Tax Justice Network Africa. We've recently signed a memorandum of cooperation with TJNA, and in ATAF we hope to intensify that relationship between ATAF and TJNA and our other partners. We have a particularly important historic role on the continent when it comes to issues of illicit financial flows, but issues of taxation, domestic resource mobilization, and in the bigger scheme of things, the relationship between citizens and the state, because that essentially is what taxation is all about. Here in Kenya, where we are meeting, I'm also very pleased at the reception from the Commissioner General, Mr. James Mburu, and the Kenyan Revenue Authority. In a very strong way, Kenya plays an important role in taxation on the continent that you may or may not be aware of. ATAF runs a number of tax programs across the continent, 24 to be exact. In some of these programs, the Kenya Revenue Authority provide tax experts. And currently we have the head of the Continental Committee on Value-Added Tax, Mr. Stephen Chande, I think he's here. That's Stephen Chande. He is from the Kenya Revenue Authority, and he heads our special committee on VAT, and they're looking at VAT in the digital economy, and we look forward to the work that they will be producing. Kenya also provides auditors in support of tax audits in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and hopefully soon we'll be sending some people, some specialists to Eswatini, Swaziland. And then of course we salute the great work by KESRA, the Kenyan Economic School. Ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, the global economy has and continues to force us to rethink what it means to trade within the continent. The growth in digital platforms and consequently digital trade has introduced new issues which would have been considered remotely possible 30 years ago. Digitization continues to provide an impetus for members to examine and re-examine both the economic positions and the manner in which they can obtain their fair share of taxes. I guess what all of this is trying to say is that the digital economy is making us look at taxes differently, because taxes are not coming from the traditional sources anymore. I'm not always sure whether those who make tax policy understands this. And hopefully some of our discussions here will help crystallize that. Digital platforms and the supply of digital intangibles has produced a mixed bag of risks as well as opportunities for revenue enhancement and revenue mobilization, as well as the opportunity to take advantage of digital intelligence in order to police and encourage tax compliance. In equal measure, the growth of this sector has occasioned new decentralized forms of currency which are no longer linked or regulated by banks. So people are trading, people are doing business, people are transacting, and they no longer need the normal regulatory and infrastructure and institutional development that we have become accustomed to over centuries. And what does all of this mean for the mobilization of domestic revenue? In our opinion, the current nexus and profit allocation rules dealing with this does not ensure appropriate taxing rights for source countries, and in particular for African countries. And this is partly due to the increasing digitalization of the global economy and the African economy, which enables non-residents and in particular multinational enterprises to increasingly carry out businesses in African countries with no or very limited physical presence in that country. And so when you do book on Airbnb or on hotels.com, or you do ride the Uber, there's a percentage of that income that cannot be touched, although that income has been generated in your domestic economy. How do we deal with this? The no or limited physical presence denies taxing rights under the current nexus rules. Where the nexus rules is met, the lack of recognition for the value of the market jurisdiction in the current profit allocation rules significantly limits the profits that can be taxed in the market jurisdiction, so in the domestic economy. The current rules provide an inappropriate balance between the taxing rights of the residence jurisdiction and the source jurisdiction, and are inappropriately skewed in favor of the residence jurisdiction. So in the end, the country that's importing and the country that's exporting. So the exporting country is favored more in the current allocation of taxing rights than the importing country. And so in Africa, we know we are largely importing. And in the discussion about the reallocation of taxing rights, that is where the heart of our future benefit of taxation lies. This is encouraging illicit financial flows out of Africa, artificial profit shifting to no or low tax jurisdictions, and the loss of taxes to African countries that we need for development. E-commerce changes the distribution of taxable activities to tax income and alters the balance of the taxing authority and results in the erosion of the tax base. E-commerce creates difficulties in identification and location of taxpayers, the identification and verification of taxable transactions, and opportunities for tax avoidance. All sounds very negative. E-commerce is a good thing. Digitalization is a good thing. It has a lot of innovation, it has a lot of benefits, it brings even informalities in. So there's a lot of positives about all of this. What I am focusing on is the tax and taxing implications, and the fact that existing tax systems and existing tax rules do not cater for what these new innovations are bringing. Because these new innovations are bringing good things to our economy, but we cannot sufficiently benefit from it because our tax systems are not sufficiently modern. And so things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, digital havens, have become new themes that continue to force members to consider or reconsider current approaches and pre-existing rules to taxation, both here and internationally. And so illicit financial flows continue to threaten our already scant tax bases. So old rules are simply unable to stay abreast of this development. So it's not a negation or a rejection of digitalization and e-commerce. On the contrary, we must embrace it. But we must adjust the way we deal with it, both whether it's tax or whether it's trade policy or whether it's industrial policy. We must adjust government systems to that. Notwithstanding these challenges that are present, the digital economy also presents these opportunities for revenue administrations to feature innovations in system and design for revenue collection. Additionally, an opportunity is presented for tax policy to leapfrog current discussions and move towards regimes that collect revenue through the use of technology. And some of these examples are real-time VAT systems, cross-border digital trade, and so on. And so one of the big things that a few revenue, including here in Kenya, a few revenue authorities have succeeded to do is to use digitization, automation, information technology-based systems to automate the basics and some complex forms of tax administration. That has increased your ability to collect revenue from your existing base. It has allowed you to expand your tax base because you can now collect through third parties, through basic data matching. And it has also reduced the level of corruption and rent seeking within the tax system because nobody needs to deal with a taxpayer personally in the basics of tax administration. So all of this has been good. And that is on the basis of just how digitization and digitalization impacts us in terms of the intangible taxes on the one hand and the possibility for enhanced tax administration. But what I want to do now is just to focus a little bit on global discussions on tax and the digital economy. So while we ask the question about how do we tax intangibles, how do we tax companies that are trading or doing business in your country, but they don't have a physical presence here, there are discussions going on through the OECD's inclusive framework, and this is a platform, as many of you will know, where countries around the world under the leadership of the OECD programs get together in this inclusive framework. I think it's got about 134 countries that are members, 24 of which are African countries. And they get together through technical committees and meetings to look at how to tax the digital economy. So there are 24 African countries there. What I want to share with you is our view in ATAF is that this is not just about how to tackle digital transactions. When you go to these meetings, as we do, you discover that actually what's happening there in Paris is people are busy negotiating reallocation of global taxing rights. Who's going to get what share? And the days of who owns the extractive, who owns the business, these things were bricks and mortar, it was tangible. So what is residence, what is source, what is a permanent established, those guys are different now. And so now it's about who owns the intellectual property, who owns the marketing rights, who owns, and then on the other hand, the question is, but who creates the value? Is it the consumer that creates the value or the perception of that value? And so the arguments are different. And within these meetings, there are groups of experts that go off and do research. And out of this will come a proposal that by July 2020, they must present to the OECD heads of state. A few things why I'm mentioning all of this. One, it will be the OECD heads of state that's going to then decide on the world allocation of taxing rules. I don't know what you think about that. Two, that Africa, although we are 24 countries there, we hardly say anything when we get there. that at a political level, we are not there. Because when that decision is made, it's not going to come to the African Union. It's going to come to the G20, which is the G20 developed countries. Not causing any political aspersions on anybody. I'm talking about a process here. And so in the reallocation of taxing rights, which determines in the end what as a continent we were able to collect in this new world that is emerging or that is already here, we do not have a sufficient political presence. There isn't a global platform where these things are discussed. The OECD offers the only platform, and that is why we are there, together with everybody else. And so we have a huge responsibility as Africans to do the work that we need to do to look at what are the implications of the digital economy. ATAB has published 3 technical notes, and we're the only organization outside of the 4 countries that have issued their own technical opinion on the digital economy that has made such a deposition. Nobody else in the world has done this. We need to bring awareness to our policymakers, to our treasuries, to our ministries of finance and heads of state. We need to make awareness to business, because African business is also standing to be affected by this. Because the more the digitalization is not regulated, or the impact thereof, the more domestic businesses are going to pay a price. Because domestic businesses are not able to compete with international multinational businesses. Because they pay a 30% corporate tax, and their competitor either pays no tax or a 5% effective rate, so they don't have to charge the same price for a bottle of water. And so those are the implications I think we need to look at. So these global discussions are important. And therefore, it is kind of a bit concerning that the work on illicit financial flows has kind of slowed down. We started with a great report. We quoted the numbers all over. Concern. But as organizations, we don't have to wait. We must do something about this. And so, its investment in this, because certainly over the last year or so, we have not seen the leadership we saw before. With the loss, with that. Another, and it doesn't have to do only with Google and Facebook and so on. It has to do with the behavior of African subsidiaries of multinational organizations. What we are finding is that through a multiplicity of international tax systems and rules, these multinationals are able to get away with paying very little or no tax in our countries. And that's the point I made earlier. One of the effects thereof is that it crowds out local business. And so if you look at how multinational companies in Africa, the African subsidiaries, are stripping out profits, and they strip this out through the deductions of excessive technical fees, excessive interest rate deductions, loans that the mother company gives to the African subsidiary, often loans that no commercial bank would give to that subsidiary because they over-gear them, and then charge them additional interest. All those technicalities, in the end, your tax base basically funds that mother company. And so these multinationals do not behave like that in their own countries. They behave like that in Africa because they can. They behave like this in Africa because we also do not sufficiently defend our tax base. And one of the things that deals with this is the lack of tax treaties and the content of those tax treaties. a lot of it has to do with the fact that our treaties that we have on the continent with developed countries often, in most cases, makes us sign away our taxing rights, because the tax treaty essentially is an agreement of how to share the tax. But when that agreement is signed, you will find that the African country gets a very poor part of that tax. And so these are stuff that is within our control. What we are paying to deal with interest deductions. How do we renegotiate treaties? Senegal this week cancelled one of their treaties, saying this thing doesn't benefit us. I know TJ&A here had court cases about treaties in this country. It is important that we focus on this, because digitization is one issue. The global economy is the bigger context, and the competition and the behavior of international business vis-a-vis local business and who pays what share in the end affects illicit financial flows and what the company can take. So these are all the issues I think governments and business and organizations like ourselves here need to bring together, but we need to bring it together, Alvin, beyond the conference. We need to bring it together beyond the pamphlet. We must research. We must be tangible. We must be empirical. We must bring the numbers. We must look at the cost of the contract, of the incentive. We must look at what is the cost of the treaty in terms of actual outflows. Then those policymakers will start waking up. It is not enough to stand outside. It's important to stand outside, but it's not enough. And that information must come from us. And so I'm hoping that this conference, being a Pan-African conference, will focus on the African ability. I want to conclude and say to you that I've read this week the AU report on domestic resource mobilization and illicit financial flows. And I looked at all of the organizations here today. That report doesn't mention any of you, any of us. And I'm saying this with a lot of respect to the AU. It's an AU report. It doesn't mention any of us. It doesn't mention any of the work that any of us do. ATAV has, over the last 3 years, worked with our member countries, and in 3 of these countries, we've assessed $1.1 billion in taxes that was never going to be collected. It's not written there. What is there is Tax Inspectors Without Borders of the OECD. What is there is IMF research. ATAV has brought out for the past few years the best tax research publication in Africa, the African Tax Outlook. There's not a single reference to that. And so I'm not blaming the AU, I'm also blaming ourselves. What are we doing? What are we doing to have confidence and courage in our own successes and our own achievements? And how do we expect our work to influence the policymakers if people do not know about them? So I'm hoping that this gathering will strengthen that we will not just be a gathering of complaints, that we will not just be a gathering of saying what the world is doing to us, but this will be a gathering of action where we look at what is the type of empirical research we're going to do, what is the kind of technical work we're going to do, what is the kind of policy initiatives that we're going to be proposing and how we're going to be getting there, so that there's a plan, and that the plan can be ours, and that if as Africans we're going to go to Paris and talk about the digital economy, we talk about it understanding and knowing the numbers. When you buy from Wish, when you buy from Amazon, and the impact of all of that. So ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, my appeal and my wish for us at this conference is that we leverage, yes, that we celebrate our togetherness as Africans, because we do that. That is what we do. and that we do more than that. Because the one thing we tend to do if we come together as Africans is we spend the good of our first time blaming other people. So I suggest let's take that as a given, and we don't have to do that, and we use the time to plan and make our plans in order to influence and have impact so that we can stem illicit financial flows and build a tax system on the continent that can deal with the new economy as young people would if they were given a chance to lead the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Logan Ward. Big round of applause to him, ladies and gentlemen, the Executive Secretary of ATAF. So I think we are done with the introductions. Special thank you to Alvin, special thank you, ladies and gentlemen, to Jane, and also to Logan. So this brings to a close all the love. It's time now for action. But before action, I know it's only necessary that we take a break. I'd like to invite everybody for tea for the next 30 minutes. But at the same time, we have a press briefing. So if you've got members of the press corps here or the media, I'd like to invite you to the Inzoya room. I think it's on the first floor. So we've got members of the communication team who will usher you there. And let's meet back here in exactly 30 minutes for the first plenary session. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Take a look at Africa and tell me what you see. Broken homes, empty schools, the depth of poverty. They're taking all the gold, they're taking all the diamonds, with no development or benefit to Africans. Greedy corporations, corrupt politicians, conniving against the progress of the continent. The consequence of ignorance is conflict. Africa, they taking apart for its resources. The politics of economics waste the profit. Follow the money, it will show you where the source is. Financial secrecy in underground economies. What's independence when we're living like we colonies? Africa is rich, but Africans are poor. My people pray for peace, but all they get is war.